Megan, excited to be with you again to chat about all things lead. I hope you're doing well.
Yes, likewise, Travis. It's great to see you.
So it's constantly in the news in the water space and beyond, mainstream media, what's happening with lead lines in the United States. You all, this is your daily bread and butter, obviously. We're headed towards this big inventory deadline in October. How do you just kind of describe where we are at this moment?
We are 119 days away from October 16th and getting those inventories submitted to the state regulators. And to say that that's a little bit of a frantic sprint to the finish line, or in some cases, a frantic sprint to the start line, is probably accurate. We have a lot of stress and anxiety, and at this point in time, we are just trying to digitize as much data as possible on behalf of our customers and those who come in the door in order to give them something submittable by October at this point in time.
How would you assess how systems are doing, at large? There's so many in the United States. I've heard a lot of different stories about where they stand in regards to this inventory piece. What's your kind of take on how it's going?
I would say within the last 3 months, we've seen a little bit of a shift in terms of the expectations and outcomes come October. So I would say where we were last year, it was completeness of that inventory, not only digitizing the data, but let's try to turn as many unknowns into knowns and ID as many pipes as possible leading into October. And I think those who started a year or more ago are in a good position to have some pretty dynamic baseline inventories. But I said, right now, what we're seeing is a shift to let's just get my data digitized and think about the next wave of this journey post October, because the time is kind of against us in terms of all of the massaging that needs to be done on that data come October.
Could you, I guess, dive in a little bit what an inventory looks like? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, an inventory, so a baseline inventory is just a compilation of various types of data coming from multiple places within a utility system. It's honestly not uncommon for us to get boxes or even a file cabinet of tap cards that have to get digitized to grab information like tax parcel IDs or location IDs or previous material types related to that service line location. So what essentially is a digital kind of footprint of the service line material and related data to that location. And again, we're getting that data from physical records. We're getting that data from tax parcel records. We're getting that data from metering and billing records, and also GIS. And then that all comes together. It gets normalized, and then it gets conformed to a state template for reporting purposes.
Mm. Anything interesting coming out of these inventories? I mean, you all are working with so many systems and states. Is there anything you're seeing that's like, oh wow, look at that trend, or just kind of interesting takeaways or findings?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very unique position to have a top-down view of our data within our database. And so right now we are working with over 8,000 water systems across 49 states, and that amounts to about 7.5 million service lines that we have a top-down view of. And what we're seeing right now is for the last few months, the percentage breakdown has really stayed consistent. Around 60% of all of those service locations have been unknown, and hovering between 4 and 5% lead or galvanized requiring replacement. So we're seeing that those are pretty consistent numbers and held strong for the last 3 months or so.
Oh, that is so fascinating to be able to look top down and kind of get that great statistical analysis on what's going on out there. That's 8,000 systems is a huge, sampling. So you get a great look at that data. I've heard things about maybe the sequencing or approaches that systems are taking. Hey, we're just doing inventory. Oh, we're going to verify at the same time, or kind of mixing and matching a little bit. What's the recommended approach, and maybe what are some pitfalls of systems that are trying to do things, quote, out of order or in a different way?
I think that's a great question in terms of sequencing. Sequencing matters, and sometimes it matters in order to secure funding. So what we're seeing is obviously that first step in that sequence is getting that baseline data, and that baseline data is what's going to be submitted in October. From that, using that data will guide those steps as you talk about. So if you have a lot of unknowns in your system, securing dollars to put together verification programs and turn unknowns into known, it is the very best first step. Now, I think the other thing is, when you're doing normal course work, if you know that you're going into an area in the distribution system with a lead service line, being able to take that out of the ground during kind of those normal operations is also a best practice. But first things first, submitting that baseline inventory and then securing funds to do that verification, because that's really going to guide your lead service line replacement plan, your communications plan, and your sampling plan from there.
Well, you mentioned funds, and we know that the bipartisan infrastructure law has sent down historic levels of funding just for fighting lead. I think
Mhm.
9 billion maybe has been released thus far.
Mhm.
Are you seeing impacts of those dollars on the ground out there and in what the systems you're working with, what they're able to do?
Yes, we are. Every state is potentially different in terms of how they're choosing to release those funds and get those into the communities. But I will tell you, some of the best practices that we're seeing is SRFs that are making it very easy to access those funds. So they are physically changing their application process to narrow down kind of the scope of work that needs to be submitted to secure funds. And then they're also pointing that work for very specific pieces of the lead journey. So, for example, just verification or just inventory building, as opposed to having to submit a 40+ page intended use plan with a lead service line replacement plan attached and how you're actually going to dig and replace those pipes. So, the name of the game is taking that elephant and really releasing these grants in terms of kind of micro segments of the leaded journey is really has been affected in some of the states that we're working with.
All right, now to that October deadline, October 16th, like you said. What happens then? What happens after that process? Everyone's been focused on just meeting that. What's
Yeah.
next?
The compliance journey starts. I mean, it's so funny. Everyone likes to say, what's going to happen after October? And I said, well, that's when compliance actually starts. That's when the journey starts. And I think that's lost on a lot of people. But practically speaking, two things have to happen and are required to happen. One, that inventory does need to be submitted. And so it needs to be submitted in a state approved format. So on our website, we have a map with all of the different states' reporting formats and how they differ from the EPA's Excel file, et cetera. So make sure that you consult that and know what format those inventories need to be submitted in. And then the second thing is notification has to happen within 30 days for all unknown lead and galvanized required replacement service lines. And this is really important because even last week at the ACE conference, we had a customer come up and say, this was new news to me. I didn't know that we had to do this notification requirement. So those are two very, very important things that have to happen in October and October plus 30 days, respectively.
Yeah. Well, going to be very exciting few months here. I know you all will continue to be incredibly busy. I look forward to maybe having another conversation on October 17th and seeing how everything ended up. But Megan, great to catch up. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.